But we begin this hour with major developments in the U.S.-Iran war, which now enters its second day. A massive explosion shook Iran's capital this morning as the Israeli military says it's targeting the heart of Tehran. That comes after Israel says it intercepted yet another round of missiles launched from Iran overnight. The latest strikes follow a dramatic exchange of threats between Tehran and President Trump. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has vowed what it calls its most devastating offensive operation in the country's history following the death of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. President Trump, meanwhile, posted an overnight warning to Iran saying any retaliation would be met, quote, with a force that has never been seen before. As the war enters its second day, hundreds of strikes have now taken place, with Iran firing missiles at U.S. bases in the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan. And the president is signaling the campaign will continue, posting the heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week or as long as necessary to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world. There are also signs this crisis could spread beyond Israel and Iran. This morning, protesters in Karachi, Pakistan, stormed and set fire to the U.S. consulate there. Pakistani authorities say at least 6 people were killed in the unrest. Joining us now from Dubai, Sky News reporter Sally Lockwood. Sally, bring us up to speed.
Hello to you. Yeah, it's been another very tense day here in the UAE. Hundreds of missiles and drones have been intercepted by the UAE's air defense systems in the last 24 hours. And there have been some strikes, whether that was intercepted drones that have then hit the ground or falling debris or direct hits. It's not exactly clear, but you might be able to make out the plume of smoke behind me. That's Jebel Ali Port in Dubai, home at the moment to a large buildup of American naval vessels. That was hit in the early hours of this morning, and you can still see the smoke rising above Dubai's skyline at the moment. Absolutely surreal scenes for people on the beachfront here who are used to a very, very different reality living in Dubai. But we're also hearing and seeing pictures today of a port in Abu Dhabi that has also been struck, a very large plume of smoke rising above Zayed Port in Abu Dhabi, which is home to French naval assets. And both airports have also been hit overnight. Dubai International Airport, the busiest airport in the world, was hit. That is currently closed. 4 workers were injured in that attack. And then Abu Dhabi International Airport was hit shortly after, and 1 person was killed. A very significant development today, the first strike on Iran, Duqm Port in Oman, has been hit in a drone strike today. That was the only Gulf state spared in that first day of attacks by Iran. And it was widely perceived that that was because they were playing that key role as mediator between Tehran and Washington. There was a sense that Oman would be spared. And that has come as a big shock to people here in the region. People from the UAE were fleeing to the Omani border overnight in cars because they felt so unsafe with that incoming fire and images like that luxury hotel on Dubai's iconic Palm on fire. Certainly things are very tense here. People are very worried, and we're not exactly sure how long it's going to go on for, but at the moment, the advice by the UAE government is for workers to stay at home for the next couple of days, and schools are advising the same. It's certainly a very unnerving period here in the region, and we're just going to have to see how it unfolds.
Sky News reporter Sally Lockwood coming to us from Dubai. Thank you very much for that report.
Here at home, Democrats in Congress are demanding an immediate war powers vote. One of those Democrats, Senator Andy Kim of New Jersey, writes in a new opinion piece this morning, quote, by launching military action against Iran, President Donald Trump has chosen a war, his word, that could have lasting and disastrous consequences for Americans' well-being. Congress must step in immediately to halt the military action. Senator Andy Kim joins us now. Senator Kim, Can you give us a prediction of how you think this War Powers Resolution vote is going to play out on Tuesday? Because there are already a number of Democrats who have come out and said that they are staunch Israel supporters and they're going to oppose the potential to rein in Donald Trump on these strikes.
This is such an important vote. I can think of no greater responsibility in Congress than the responsibility to oversee when our country goes to war and military conflict. So, I am having these conversations with my Democratic colleagues and Republican colleagues, making my case. But we have to make sure we have a vote, because one voice that has been missing through all of the last 48 hours is the American people. They have not had their voice heard. I did a town hall just shortly before these strikes. I asked people in the town hall, how many of you want to see a military conflict with Iran? 0 hands were raised.
Right.
I asked how many of you think that the American people need to have a say? Every hand was raised. They do not want this. This is not a war that the American people want. They want a government focused on them instead of this imperialist president moving forward.
So, Senator John Fetterman, is that an ideological decision that he's made to come out and support the Trump administration going to war with Iran? Or do you believe that's reflective of what his constituents in Pennsylvania want?
Well, look, that's a question directly for him. But what I will say in terms of what I hear is that the people do not want this. And regardless of what your own personal beliefs are, even if you believe that Iran should be a target for strikes, we need to assert the Constitution. The oath that I swear when I got sworn in last year is an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. No president has the ability to be able to move forward in this direction because of the enormous consequence that could fall upon our service members. And I worked in Afghanistan. I worked in Iraq. I've been on this side of the conflict. And I don't want to see that go forward with service members put in harm's way unless absolutely necessary. And what information does this president have? I'm on the Homeland Security Committee. This president has given us 0 indication of any imminent threat. We have so much concerns about retaliations. Are we prepared with interceptors to be able to protect our service members? These are questions that the American people deserve to hear.
Senator, you mentioned the lack of support for Iran strikes in general. Before this Saturday, an Economist YouGov poll found that only 27% of those folks polled, 1,551 U.S. adult citizens were polled. Only 27% said they support them. 49 opposed and 24 were not sure. You mentioned that you were on the Homeland Security Committee. I wonder what concerns you have moving forward after we've seen the gutting of our intel operations in this country, whether it's at the DOJ, the FBI, at DHS, with those or folks just leaving because they feel like they can't work for this administration. Do you feel like the administration can protect the homeland here in this country with the intel apparatus that we have currently?
I worry about this posture, especially given this president's rash actions here on Iran. We have seen over the last year a gutting of key Homeland Security entities like CISA, for instance, that oversees cybersecurity. Right. We know Iran's capabilities with cyber attacks. Many of CISA's workers have been cut or reassigned, often reassigned to immigration-related issues that they are not trained to do. So when we're looking at the concerns about protecting our homeland, the worry about whether or not we've taken these threats seriously, these are the types of preparations that a country can and should make. I have not seen any indication that we have surged in any way to be able to handle the potential threats that now are coming because of the president's actions. And that's why I think this is such a reckless and dangerous move. Not only is it against the American people, but it makes us more, further vulnerable to these threats. The last thing I'll just say on this related point is if you are going to take any type of military action, it's best to move forward with other countries. And I was just at the Munich Security Conference. I have never seen America so alone, so isolated than we are now. Never in my lifetime have I seen the kind and heard the kind of comments from world leaders as they were telling me, we don't want anything to do with this anymore. That's what they would say to me. And so I'm very much concerned if this is a protracted conflict. Our ability to get resupply and other things, like we're going to be cut off from our allies and our partners, and that just makes us all the more vulnerable.
Senator, you mentioned that you worked in Iraq, you worked in Afghanistan. We said in the intro, you focused on the threats of Iranian terror. You just mentioned a moment ago the potential threats that we face here. Given all of that, and now that the United States, along with Israel, have now attacked Iran, what is keeping you up at night? What will keep you up at night as this campaign goes on, not just for days, but for weeks?
You know, I, like the rest of America, woke up yesterday with our country yet again at a war at the direction of President Trump. And the first thing that came to mind was, you know, are we going to be able to protect our servicemen and women? You know, we will certainly see the missile barrages and others, but having worked on countering Iranian terror for so many years, I see all the different tools that they have, especially when we saw all the ID attacks against our soldiers before, now potential for drone attacks. We have two different aircraft carriers, 10 destroyers, all within range. We see a number of different things that could happen that could very well target our service members. And that is exactly why the American people and Congress should have had a say, is because the president is putting them in harm's way. We don't know if they're going to be properly protected.
But I am old enough to remember the Iranian Revolution. I'm old enough to remember and know that Iran and its threat isn't just to our service members in the region. Their threat was global. How worried should the American people be that these potential threats that you're worried about could impact us here at home in the United States?
I would hate to see it, but I can't say that it's off the table. And that is something that keeps me up at night very much so, because we've seen this regime be able to build out a global strategy when it comes to attacking us. And should they feel a need to use it, and if ever there was a time, I believe that this could be a time when they feel backed into the corner, when we have seen this President Trump, specifically call this a war, and it's a war for regime change. This this regime in Iran very much could feel like this is an existential threat to them and may take actions that we may not have even seen before. And that's very worrying. And especially when we know that with regime change, you don't always get what you want. President Trump cannot look us in the eye and say that he can guarantee that the next leader will be more stable and better for the United States.
They'll in fact be less moderate, more hardline.
It could very well be the case. Many that have studied this, we have talked about potential scenarios, and one of the most likely outcomes was that it would give the IRGC Quds Force, the specific terror part of the Iranian government, a greater level of influence, if not leadership capability. So, that very much worries me, that we're creating a new generation of Iranian terror at a time when we weaken diplomatic efforts. We've cut ourselves off from coalitions and allies and partners.
And this is partly the strange thing when you call it, we are calling it regime change, but they have only got rid of one leader. It's the same thing that happened in Venezuela. Senator Andy Kim, as you were talking to your Republican colleagues about this war powers vote, let us know what they say. Thank you for coming on and joining us at the table.
Thank you.